Good evening, everybody. This is Wide Open Prepper coming to you live or pre-recorded. I wanted to make this video. I'm not sure what it's going to be about, but I have some sort of starting, and that's about it. I don't have it pre-scripted, so forgive me. There's a lot going on in the world right now. It's a world that I don't recognize from when I was a kid. So much has changed, and I knew the world would change, and I could see history from a young age, and it was obvious that the world changed dramatically, but I had no idea that it would change so much. For me, the biggest change has been in the last 20 years, just through my filter. 20 years ago, I was 20, and the country that I grew up in is foreign to me now, and there's a lot on my mind, as I'm sure all of us that think along these lines. There's lots of different rabbit holes to crawl down in terms of what's happening, whether it be with just the unwinding of the social fabric of the country, or the government, or just the changes in what's acceptable socially and what's acceptable globally. Before, not too long ago, excuse me, I had never shot a gun or owned one, and I had never owned any precious metals. I bought the gun first. I decided to buy a gun after I had, or my wife and I had, our first child, and I was sitting in my living room, and I realized, hey, you know, if somebody broke into my home, it's no longer myself that I'm protecting. I had always had confidence in my own abilities to protect myself, but you know, when you become a family man, you think differently. So I decided to buy a gun. I went down to the local gun store and told the guy I had never owned or shot a gun, and he looked at me like I was crazy. And he says, well, come on back, and took me back to the inside range that they had, and he handed me a .357 Smith & Wesson revolver. So that was the first gun that I ever shot or heard, and it probably wasn't the best weapon, but you know, I'm a bigger guy, so I could handle it. But I remember feeling the concussion in my teeth from the round going off, and I realized at that moment just how powerful a firearm is and how much damage it could cause. So anyhow, you know, at that time I thought, hey, I'll buy one gun and leave it at that. But as anybody that's purchased one, I'm assuming, knows, it's sort of addicting. After I purchased the gun, I don't recall when I first heard of the prepper lifestyle. Maybe it was through YouTube videos. I think that's where most of the fertilization came from for me, mentally, on you know, just being aware of what was happening around me. I just had a sense that not only did I have to protect my family, but that the world was changing around me. So I do believe that this is the best form of investment at this point in time in the history of the United States, or anywhere globally, is gold and silver. I do believe that the monetary system is a setup. It's a shell game. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I am as cynical as they come, and I look at things from all angles. At least I think I do. But I do believe that a shit hits the fan scenario, or without rule of law, the most probable reason will be because of a financial collapse, the dollar collapsing in the country. You know, there's 3 days of food on the shelves, and if the dollar collapses and nobody's paying policemen or firemen or you know, first responders, or you know, even the folks running the power company, I think it's going to get bad quickly. I can see that happening. So, you know, I mean, it's paper. That's what the $100 bill is, the $20 bill, the cash. I just recently went to my local bank to take out some cash, and it wasn't a lot, but it was a fair bit. It was 10 grand. And I went in the morning, they didn't have it. They told me I had to call ahead, and I said, well, can you call the other branches in the area? And they called 5 different branches. This is a fairly large bank. It's not the biggest bank in the world. None of the branches had 10 grand. And I thought, you know, no, not only am I going to continue to invest in gold and silver, but I just don't like the idea of even keeping my money in the bank. Who's to say they won't shut the door one day or decide to tell me they don't have it, and I've got to wait for it, and it's a day where I really need it. So I did invest in a safe a few years ago, and I'm not going to say that I would advise buying a safe because I don't know your financial situation, but if you have the money, I wouldn't buy a Costco safe. There's a great video on YouTube that was it was an interview with a safe dealer in Oregon, CE Safes, Florida. CE Safes in Florida. I'm not sure where the city is, but I believe the owner's there. His name is Kurt. And everything he says is true about safes. If you want a good one, they're not cheap. You know, I think you're going to spend at least $2,500, $3,000 for a good safe. You know, these Costco safes they look sweet, they look killer, but they're easily broken into based on my research. So anyhow, I'm not going to go on too much here. I just wanted to introduce myself and welcome any comments. I'm not into trolls or kooks, so if you're going to talk shit on a mad level, then I'm going to blackball you. So not because I'm cool, but just because there's too much bullshit in the world and I don't need to hear any more of it. Constructive conversation is good. People that disagree, that's cool. Anyhow, this is the Wide Open Prepper signing off. God bless the USA.